So the first Echo trailer has officially been released. For those that don't know, that is the upcoming Disney Plus series that is the next to be released under the Marvel Studios banner. Now we all know that the Marvel Disney Plus shows have been underwhelming to say the least. In fact, some of them have been downright unwatchable.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
But the social media reaction to this trailer in particular has been interesting, with some people liking it so much that they are proclaiming that Marvel is back. As always, I'm going to offer a little bit of perspective with this video and encourage people to just pump their brakes a little bit. The truth is, we've seen this kind of misdirection from Marvel Studios before. So let's look into this a little deeper, because Marvel Studios lately has not earned the right to have us judge their product at face value alone. Let's discuss.
Our content sucks. Our content sucks.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Well, hey, a big change is coming to Marvel. And for the first time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going mature.
This is the first M-rated MCU project. There are more on the way.
Do you know what this whole Echo situation kind of feels like to me? Echo feels like it could potentially be the MCU's version of Andor. And you might ask, what do I mean by that? Well, Andor was almost universally praised upon its release, so much so that it had people proclaiming that Disney Star Wars was in fact back.
Bullshit.
The only issue with that statement is that nobody really cared about Andor. Whether it's because of the damage that's already been done to the Disney Star Wars brand, or because when it comes right down to it, there was zero demand for a show based on Cassian Andor. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, he is a mostly boring and forgettable character. Disney thought that because people in general liked Rogue One, that dipping back into that part of Star Wars lore was going to win fans back.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
But no matter how good the show is or isn't, it doesn't really matter if there's no interest in it to begin with. And I do see Echo being a very similar situation. Is Disney underestimating the amount of damage that's been done to the MCU brand over the past several years? Are they overestimating the general public's interest in an obscure character like Echo? And I do think Disney is trying to capitalize on people's love of the Netflix Marvel shows, which were considerably more mature. But let's not forget, just a short time ago, Disney wanted those shows almost completely erased from existence. So they did not interfere in their MCU plans moving forward. Now suddenly they are embracing those shows and their tone, and again trying to capitalize on something that they did not create.
Something very familiar about all this.
You see, Marvel Studios is in a unique position, a position they rarely have found themselves in. That being the way that they typically do things isn't resonating with people anymore. People have grown tired of their formulaic way of doing things. So now Marvel Studios is trying to pull from things that worked elsewhere because they themselves are out of ideas. So no, I'm not going to give Marvel Studios credit for producing a trailer that makes one of their projects look more mature. Then came news that Echo will be the first show under the Marvel Spotlight sub-brand. Quote, Marvel Spotlight gives us a platform to bring more grounded, character-driven stories to the screen. And in the case of Echo, focusing on street-level stakes over larger MCU continuity.
That makes sense.
Now on paper, from my perspective, that sounds amazing. It's pretty much what I've been asking for when it comes to comic book-based entertainment. What's ironic is that there are a lot of people praising this decision who had previously said they had no interest in stories like this, because to them, comic book movies or shows should be about spectacle more than anything. Do you see how people change their tone based on what a corporation tells them they should like? But if I say the same thing for years, I'm toxic, right? But I digress.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
I have a very hard time believing that the MCU is going to be able to pull this off based on their track record and based on the people who are still in charge. We've seen them already in movies and shows try to handle the material in a more mature way. And oftentimes they do it to an extent, but then revert back to the typical Marvel formula. They go back to the cringe that they feel like got them to the dance in the first place. I've said for some time now that Marvel hasn't done a good job of putting the right people in the right situations so their characters and stories can prosper. So I believe that Echo's success will come down to those in charge, that being the writers and the directors, and the amount of creative freedom they were allowed to have. Series director Sidney Freeland had this to say about the violence depicted in the show. Quote, "We wanted very, very adamantly to show that these are people on our show. They bleed, they die, they get killed, and there are real consequences." And she adds that Marvel Studios supported this choice. She went on to say, "They protect the out of their creatives. I felt absolutely protected and empowered." Yes, Queen! It's comments like this that make me believe this whole supposed push for maturity is nothing more than a spin job and complete bullshit. What she says in the first quote is exactly what you want to hear as a fan, because all of that is something that the MCU has been severely missing. It's the second quote that sent up red flags everywhere. Because the idea of Marvel protecting their creatives better than anyone couldn't be further from the truth.
You sit on a throne of lies.
And we have proof of them doing the exact opposite for years. Maybe they are trying to change that narrative now, which is a good thing, but history tells us that nobody meddles with or manipulates the work of their creatives more so than Disney Marvel, outside of maybe WB. For years they have altered projects to the point that they almost completely removed individuals' creative freedom, all for the sake of making everything fit nicely into their established universe.
That's right, it stinks!
How many actors, writers, directors, and VFX workers have come out over the years to tell everyone how unfulfilling it is to work for Marvel Studios? But now, all of a sudden, they protect their creatives better than anyone. That, to me, feels like a forced narrative, and I'm just not buying it. While I will agree that the Echo trailer did feel different than what they typically do, and I welcome that, I'm not convinced that they're going to do a 180 with this project and suddenly be great at storytelling again. I'm willing to give them a chance to prove me wrong, and I hope they do. But I will most certainly not be giving them the benefit of the doubt based on this trailer, because they have not earned that.
Not up in here! Not up in here!
As always, the intent and why they made this show in the first place means everything. Did you make Echo because you wanted to check some boxes and prove that you are morally superior to every other studio in Hollywood? Or did you make Echo to inspire change because you wanted to take your brand in a new and exciting direction? Only time will tell, and I'm sure the more information that comes out about this series will be revealing. But they're going to need to do more than produce a decent trailer to convince me that this is going to be different.
Help me help you.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.